Former Arizona Cardinals head coach Dennis Green famously said, "They are who we thought they were." Well, Tennessee State is who we thought they were, but Notre Dame did not let them off the hook.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? Welcome to Locked On Irish. Today is Monday, September 4th. So happy Labor Day, and thanks for getting your week started here by making this your first listen of the day. I'm Tyler Wojciak, and I'm the host. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer covering college football for Fox Sports. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And today, we're going to talk about Notre Dame's demolition of the Tennessee State Tigers with a final score of 56-3. The Irish handled business in this one. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and that was beat down a far inferior opponent in every facet of the game. And they did. 8 different Irish players scored touchdowns in this one, and this game was over by halftime. Similar to the Navy game, there wasn't anything that happened that's going to drastically change the way I look at the rest of the season for Notre Dame and what they're capable of, but I did think that there were some interesting things to take away from this one, and I'll go over all of that here before we turn the page to NC State. And the first takeaway I have from this game, and really the season so far, is that Notre Dame's running back room is loaded. They're obviously led by Audric Estime, but they are so deep and so talented behind him that it really is one of the best running back rooms in the entire country, top to bottom. Now, if you want to argue with top duos, maybe that's a different conversation. Michigan, Penn State, they certainly have a case. And this is actually something I went over in the offseason thinking, does Notre Dame have the best running back duo? Well, then Logan Diggs left Notre Dame. And at the time, I was like, that's a big loss. He's an extremely talented player, although I did think it was kind of odd that he did not play for LSU in that game last night against Florida State. Anyway, that's a different topic for another time. But even without Logan Diggs, that running back room was still extremely talented. And right off the bat, Jeremiah Love, true freshman, scores the first touchdown of the game for the Irish. And I have to say, yes, it was great that Jeremiah Love scored his first ever touchdown in a Notre Dame uniform, but it felt especially good that he did it merely hours after a former Notre Dame commit, Dylan Edwards, lit up TCU in that game with TCU in Colorado that pretty much the entire college football world was watching, because whether you like him or not, Deion Sanders and what he's doing at Colorado is captivating, and they put on a show, at least offensively, in that one against TCU, and Dylan Edwards was a big reason why. He finished that game with 4 touchdowns and just looked electric out there. We knew that when Notre Dame was recruiting him, and it was a bummer, certainly, once he decommitted, but like a lot of you, I kind of looked at that like, all right, well, that sucks, but Notre Dame does have a bunch of running backs in front of him. And I'm not going to be like one of those people that's like, oh, who needs him? Who needs Dylan Edwards? Because even though he probably wouldn't be getting a lot of carries this season, down the road, it would be really nice to have a guy of his caliber on the team. But that's my point. I was thinking about, okay, so if Dylan Edwards had come to Notre Dame, where would he fit on the depth chart? He'd be behind Estime, for sure. He'd probably be behind Jadarian Price. I would have to think maybe he's ahead of Jabron Payne. And who knows with Jeremiah Love? Jeremiah Love looked really good in this game. So would he even be the highest or the better freshman on the depth chart? I really don't know. And that's just how good that Notre Dame running back room, that a player who could start on a Pac-12 team, get 4 touchdowns in his first game ever in college and be really effective, would barely be getting touches on this Notre Dame team. That says a lot about the room. It also says a lot about Dylan McCullough and his eye for talent. And obviously, Lance Taylor had a part in this as well. He was the Notre Dame running back coach prior to Dylan McCullough, and he had a good eye for talent. He was a really good recruiter, and Dylan McCullough just picked up where he left off and has elevated that room even more. So it was great for Jeremiah Love, but he wasn't even the leading rush for Notre Dame. That was Audric Estime, who had 116 yards on 13 carries and a touchdown. When he had that 50-yard run where he was just a battering ram, just going right through the middle of the field, tacklers were just bouncing off him. Like, I feel bad, like legitimately bad for any defensive back, let alone an FCS level defensive back who sees Audric Estime running at him and he's got to make a play. Like, if I'm that guy, I'm making a business decision there. I'm diving at his ankles and just hoping that maybe I trip him up enough that he falls down. But Estime is leading the way. He had another really solid game. Even though he only had 13 carries, it's really not that much, but it does seem like they're conserving him, and maybe we'll start to see this weekend against NC State get like 25 carries and really just be on the field the whole time. But Notre Dame continued to rotate a lot at the running back position. Jabron Payne, he converted on 3 of 4 Notre Dame's third and short chances. It is kind of interesting that Jabron Payne is sort of the short yardage specialist. You would think that's Estime because he's so big and strong, but it's actually Payne, and Payne's 5'9". So I think he just has great vision and has the ability to find a hole, get through it, and get those short yards and keep those legs driving so that Notre Dame converts. So he's got a role in this one. And then overall, the running backs combined for 107 receiving yards on 6 catches, including touchdowns, long touchdowns, I should add, by Jadarian Price and Jabron Payne. So they were really effective in every facet of the offense, and it's really impressive to see because that really, even though Notre Dame has had some good running backs over the years, they haven't been able to throw this many guys in and all of them be effective. In total, through 2 games, the Irish running backs have accounted for 527 yards of total offense and 6 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Notre Dame lost Devin Ford in this one due to injury. More on that in a bit. But even without Devin Ford, I don't know how long he's going to be out, if he's out at all. I'm guessing they're going to probably not play him against NC State because the hit he took to his head was it was so bad. But they should be set with 4. They have plenty of talented guys, and I'm just going to be really interested to see if they keep this rotation up going against NC State and the better opponents left on their schedule, because it is great to have so many guys that can come in and make plays, but there's also something to be said about when a running back just gets in a rhythm and you're just kind of like, just feed him the rock. Like if Estime's running over dudes and getting 6 yards every time he touches the ball, just keep feeding him. And yes, it sucks for the guys who are behind him, but trust me, they're young, they're going to get their moment, so I have no problems about that, but really, really impressive performance by the Notre Dame running backs in this one. And that Sam Hartman guy, he's still good, it looks like. It looks like that opener was not a fluke, I should say, although I don't think anyone ever thought that would be. That 2-minute drive was absolutely surgical. Like, once Notre Dame started calling the timeouts and they're on defense, they're trying to hold Tennessee State to a field goal there. I'm like, all right, cool. They're going to try to push the ball down the field, get into 2-minute offense, or 1-minute offense, I should say. And this is going to be cool to see Sam Hartman have a chance to lead this offense down the field and try to get one more touchdown before the half and effectively end his day, which is exactly what happened because Sam Hartman went 6 for 6 to 4 different receivers, covering 80 yards in less than a minute that ended with a touchdown to Holden Stays. It was unbelievable. Watching him in total command of Notre Dame's offense and Tennessee State's defense, comes to the line, he's yelling stuff out. He's getting guys where they need to be. He's calling out the plays. Boom, ball's out, on time, catch, first down, chains moving, and it was just like that over and over and over again. And then he finds Holden Stays for a touchdown there. It actually looked like Mitchell Evans was wide open in the middle of the field, but he had already committed to throwing it to Holden Stays there on the left. Anyway, great throw and great catch by Holden Stays for his first career touchdown. It was just unbelievable by Hartman. He finished 14 of 17 for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns in one half of football. He has one more incompletion than he does touchdown passes through 2 games, but he actually made up for that one incompletion with a rushing TD. And just quick note on that rushing TD. Sam, I love you. It was a great play, acrobatic, great touchdown. I love that he gave the effort there. Please, for the love of God, stay on the ground. Because when he went up like that, my heart stopped. I got so nervous that he was going to get hurt when he came down because he is so crucial to the success of this team that we cannot have another starting quarterback get injured this season. We went through it last year. We saw exactly how that happened, what happened after that, and that was not a whole lot of fun to watch. So we need Sam Hartman to be in a bubble, and I do not like him going airborne, especially against a team like Tennessee State, where you knew that the outcome was never going to be in jeopardy. So love the effort, but please stay on the ground if you can, Sam. But through 2 games, he's 33 of 40 for 445 yards and 6 touchdowns, or I shouldn't even say 2 games, through a game and a half, really. And he has not been picked off yet. I love the aggression, pushing the ball downfield, but the interesting thing is, he hasn't really thrown that many deep shots yet. We saw a little bit against Navy, but in this one against Tennessee State, he really wasn't. He'd pushed the ball downfield, but it was more like 10 to 20 yards. He hasn't really just cocked it back and let it loose yet, but I'm sure that's coming soon, and I'm interested to see which receiver it's going to go to. Hopefully, Tobias Merriweather is able to step up and make a play because it has been a quiet start to the season so far for him. But Sam Hartman is going to get a chance to go against some real, or actually quality defensive competition this weekend, and he's going to have a chance to exercise some demons against NC State because I believe he is 0-2 against them in his career. So an unbelievable start by Sam Hartman in his Notre Dame career. I really don't think it could have gone better through 2 games, but these are 2 games that we can all agree are against inferior opponents. It's going to be really exciting to see what he does this Saturday, and if he continues to play at this level, the hype train it's going to be out of control, man. Like if he goes out and he just shreds NC State, and I know they're NC State, it's not like Georgia I'm talking about here, but it would be a statement game because the whole world was seeing him play against Navy because it was the only game on, and then no one was really paying attention to this one. But if he keeps piling up these performances, man, he might even be better than I thought he was going to be going into the season, and I had really high hopes for him then. So just a great start for Sam Hartman. He is unbelievable. But we still got plenty to get to, so coming up next, it's time to address those targeting calls, or lack thereof, I guess I should say. Now it's time for your Game Changer of the Week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Sam Hartman has done for the Notre Dame football program, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. They're full of flavor and well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer. Sam Hartman has completely changed the Notre Dame offense since he's come aboard, and that's game-changing stuff right there. And you could find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Before we get back to the game, I want to tell you guys about a new show we launched here on the Locked On Podcast Network called Locked On College Football Kickoff, which airs live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover everything going on in the sport and go in-depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of college hosts covering their team every day. I'll be on the show at some point soon, and I can't wait because it's a really, really great show. Okay. My other takeaway from this game, and this isn't really a new thing, it's something I've been thinking about for a while. Targeting is broken in college football. Nobody knows what it is or isn't, and it doesn't seem like the refs know either. And Saturday was a prime example of that on both sides, because the hit on Devin Ford on the kickoff return that caused the fumble was, to me, blatant targeting, okay? And when it happened, I literally cringed. And it's one of those games, or one of those plays, where like, look, I love football, okay, more than probably anything else. And it's my favorite sport. It's always been. But you got to admit, like, you watch any football game at, like, the college or pro level, there's at least one play a game where you kind of think, why does anyone play this game? Like, it is so violent, and the hits these guys take, because there are dudes who are, like, 6'3", 235 pounds without an ounce of body fat on them, going full speed and hitting people as hard as they can, and guys will just be like, okay. But not in this case. Devin Ford got hit really hard, direct contact right to his helmet, in his head, caused the fumble. His arms go numb. Fortunately, he got back up a lot sooner than I expected. I was pretty nervous about that, but glad to see him up walking around. He was out the rest of the game, and just a very scary moment. So in the moment, I was at work, and I was in a conference room where we're getting set up for our post-game show. So we got like 4 different games on. I had the Notre Dame-Tennessee State game on the TV, but the rest of the crew that I was with, they didn't think that game warranted the game call being heard in the room. So that's fine. So I wasn't listening to the broadcast when I first watched the game. So I see the hit, I see the fumble, and I'm like, okay. Immediately, just in my head, I assume that they're going to review it for targeting, because I'm like, oh, that's obviously targeting. Everyone else in the room, so I was like, that's targeting. So start looking at another game. I think they went to commercial, and I'm like, okay, come back. And then I'm like, wait a second. What? There's no targeting? They're not even going to review it? How is that possible? And again, I wasn't listening to the broadcast, so I just see the Notre Dame defense on the field. I'm like, how is that not targeting? So then we fast forward to the Antonio Carter play. When he makes a hit, forces a fumble that gets caught by a Tennessee State player. And then, of course, they're reviewing that for targeting. And as soon as I saw that they were reviewing that one for targeting, I was like, oh, well, that's going to be targeting then, because of course, right? Because Notre Dame is always, or almost always, on the wrong side of a targeting call, whether it is or it isn't. It's just whatever is the wrong side to be on in that case, that is the side that Notre Dame is going to be on. And Antonio Carter hit the guy's shoulder first, tried to move his head to the right, and now he gets ejected, and he misses the entire second half, in which he would have gotten a lot of valuable reps because he didn't play a ton in that Navy game, but he would have played a lot in this one against Tennessee State, especially in that second half where they're rotating a little bit more, and he would get more reps on the field as a safety because he's a converted cornerback, and every rep that he takes at that position matters. And that gets taken away because of this call. It was ridiculous. I don't get it. And I'm glad that Marcus Freeman laid into the refs, and he was making the same point that I'm making now. If you don't call it over there, you can't call it here. Just be consistent. That's all we're asking with this stuff, with targeting, because it's not just the 15 yards, the ejection. Like, that is so crucial. The only silver lining in all of this is that it happened with, a minute and 15 left in the first half. So, fortunately, Antonio Carter is going to be available for the NC State game. But he should never have been in this position in the first place because maybe it was targeting. Maybe they wanted to call it targeting. I didn't think it was. But if they're not going to call the one on Devin Ford targeting, if they're not even going to review it, then that Antonio Carter hit sure as hell wasn't targeting. But, alas, the NCAA calls it, or whoever called it, a targeting, and then Antonio Carter gets ejected. And I have been preaching this for so long. This is not, I'm sure that there are other people who have this take as well. There needs to be two levels to targeting, much like flagrant fouls in the NBA, where flagrant one is a foul, leads to free throws, but it's unintentional. It's like hard contact. You can't have two of those in a game, but it's inadvertent, call it, move on. It's not an automatic ejection, where like a flagrant 2 is usually intentional or just really dangerous. And in that case, you want to get those hits out of football. I have no problem with the player getting ejected in that case. That is not what Antonio Carter did there. That was not intentional. It was not an extremely dangerous hit by any means. It should have been like a targeting 1. And the NCAA can make this change easily. They should have made this a long time ago. I have not heard one valid reason why they haven't, but they still haven't. And the NCAA could change rules midseason. Remember when Kenny Pickett did that fake slide? And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of weak because the defensive player has to let up once he sees him start to give himself away. Guess what? The NCAA enacted a rule that week, making sure that was no longer allowed. A quarterback or whoever could not fake slide and then get back up and run away. They made that rule change mere days after that play. And we're in year however many with targeting, and we still can't figure it out. It's infuriating, and Notre Dame was, again, on the wrong side of it. So moving on here, let's get back to something a little bit more positive. The defense has been stellar. They haven't given up a touchdown yet. They've allowed just 325 total yards through 2 games. And in this one, I think I said, I did. I said in the preview pod that I was hoping that they would go and try to break the sack record, which is 9, because I thought Tennessee State's line was going to be way worse than what they actually were. So, hey, credit to them. They actually played surprisingly well. But Notre Dame did get in the backfield quite often. They had 10 quarterback hurries, according to PFF. I thought Jordan Botelho looked really good again in more than just the pass rush going into the season. How he set the edge and how he defends the run was certainly a concern. He's looked really good. But he wasn't even the best defensive lineman in this game because that was Howard Cross. That dude was unblockable in the interior, and it was great to see because he has moments like that where you're like, man, he's not that big, but he's in the backfield. And he was again in this one. He led the team with 6 tackles, had a pass deflected as well, so he was really, really good. Who else on defense stood out? I mean, Benjamin Morrison, man, he's so good. And if teams want to keep throwing it to him, go ahead. That is one play when I see 20 and the ball is in that area, I'm like, all right, he's got it. He'll figure it out. So he's not going to be around after next season. We probably only have this season and next season left with Benjamin Morrison, and enjoy it because he is a special, special talent at cornerback, and it is so great to have a player of that caliber. Not as good of a game for Cam Hart. It did seem like he had that missed tackle where kind of looked like he let up a little bit. Maybe that's his shoulder kind of getting in his head, but Notre Dame is still very good at corner. They're very deep. And shout out to Clarence Lewis, man. Clarence Lewis, CPA, for those that listen to Sons of Saturday Irish. Good for him getting that pick 6. He has had an interesting up and down career at Notre Dame where he comes in as a freshman and sees significant playing time, and then that sort of fell off once he got beat out by younger guys like a Benjamin Morrison. But he stuck around. He's still very valuable to this team, and especially the defensive backs, because he has a ton of experience, a lot more than you typically get from a reserve at the defensive back position. So great for him to get that interception and then house it. He made a nice move on the way to the end zone, and that was great. And Ramon Henderson, he doesn't make a lot of picks, but when he does, they're impressive. That was Really, really great play by him. I know that the quarterback, it was like a terrible pass, but for Ramon Henderson to be able to track it down and lay out full extension like he did to make the play that he did. I know Marcus Freeman got on him a little bit because of how he reacted and how he kind of spiked the ball into the ground instead of giving it to the ref. Ramon, I didn't care about that. I thought it was great. That was an unbelievable play by him. So that was really great stuff so far from the defense. And again, they'll have a big test this Saturday against NC State. But there's a couple more things I want to get to, including a couple nitpicky things because Notre Dame didn't pitch a perfect game in this one, but that's coming up right after this. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Okay, so I've got one more positive thing I want to hit on and then a few nitpicky things because, like I said, Notre Dame didn't pitch a perfect game. But going into this game, I said it's going to be really important for Notre Dame's backups to see some significant time on Saturday, live action, going against an opponent that's not their teammate. So most importantly, Steve Angeli, him getting reps was crucial in this one, and he got a lot of action. He finished 8 of 11 for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I love that Notre Dame didn't waste any time. They brought out Steve Angeli for the second half once the game was already in hand, and they kept him in there with the ones and the rest of the offense because if Sam Hartman ever does go down at this point, Angeli needs those reps with the starters. He needs to be in the huddle. He needs to be communicating with those guys before the play and needs to be able to make those plays on the field. And yes, the numbers are a little bit skewed because 2 of those touchdowns were on sort of dump passes that were taken to the house courtesy of the Notre Dame running backs who made some plays in the open field. But especially on that play to Jadarian Price, that was a really impressive play by Angeli to avoid the rush, roll to his left, and then get the ball out to not get sacked. And then Price took it to the house. So that was really, really good stuff from him. I think it was overall a good day for him. There were some passes where we were like, whoa, that wasn't great. And also, it's tough on Angeli because we're coming off of Hartman just going right down the field, accurate, on time, on the money every single time. And then Angeli throws one to Rico Flores, and it's way off. You're like, whoa, what was that? And then you think back to last year, like, oh, we actually saw that all the time. Steve Angeli is human. Maybe Hartman is not, at least not at this point. So I thought it was great. Very, very valuable reps for him on the field on Saturday. I don't think we're going to look at this and be like, well, Notre Dame doesn't need to get a grad transfer quarterback because they've got quarterback in Steve Angeli. I don't think that's the case at all. And I think that, unless something serious happens to Sam and Angeli ends up playing multiple games, I think we're just going to have to revisit that after the season. And Notre Dame's coaching staff is going to have a very interesting decision to make. Speaking of quarterbacks, Kenny Minchie also made his debut. That was cool, even though he wasn't asked to do a ton. Still, it's cool for him. And so many other guys who made their debut for Notre Dame and also in Notre Dame Stadium. So many walk-ons got some playing time. That's always great. I love when the walk-ons get on and they get rewarded for everything that they do for the program because it is so much, and all of it, or almost all of it, I should say, is out of the spotlight. But for a few brief moments on Saturday, they were in the spotlight, and that was great. Defensively, someone that stood out was Aiden Kayanina. He had 3 tackles and a tackles for a loss. Again, he was a guy who we weren't even sure if he's going to be on the roster at this point, and then there he was, making a couple plays in garbage time on Saturday. So that was great. Very happy for all the guys who got time that don't normally see it, and especially those walk-ons, because these reps for the backups, the reserves, will be very important in the future when these guys have to come in. If a starter gets injured or they just need a breather, there's no substitute for experience, and you kind of get those first play jitters out of the way going up against Tennessee State. All right. It wasn't all perfect, though. The missed tackles, they were kind of annoying to me. Notre Dame had 5 missed tackles according to PFF, but it felt like more, especially early on. And I think that's because this doesn't include, that number 5 doesn't include times when, guys took like the wrong angle. And even though it didn't register as a missed tackle, it was a tackle that could and should have been made. One person that sort of stood out in this respect was Jalen Sneed. And Jalen Sneed is a great athlete, and I think he's going to be a really, really good football player. He's going to make some plays this season where you're going to be like, wow, unbelievable play by Jalen Sneed. But there's also some plays where you're like, man, what is he doing? It's almost like he's too fast for his own good because he's really not as effective in space. Like, he's taking some bad angles and stuff and let guys get by him. And it's like he's moving too fast for his own good. That's a little bit out of control. Again, that's something that can be developed. And I think that will develop over time. But that's why he's not in the rotation as much with like Maris Leofau, JD Bertrand, and Jack Kaiser, because he's still very raw and he still has some things to work out at the college level. So that was a little frustrating early on. I don't know how much of that has to do with just coming off the Navy game, coming back from Ireland and all that, but the missed tackles were something that Notre Dame definitely needs to clean up. And it's been a slow start for Notre Dame's special teams. I'm not just talking about this one, but also the Navy game as well. I'm not even really including the Devin Ford fumble in this because, like I said in segment 2, like that was clearly targeting, and that fumble should have been removed because he took an illegal shot. But the 52-yard kickoff return that they gave up, that's unacceptable, especially against a team like Tennessee State. You can't be doing that. And then the missed field goal last week is still sort of on my mind because Spencer Schrader has not made a field goal yet for Notre Dame, and they are going to need him. And even if it's just like a chip shot against Tennessee State, like it'd be nice for him to get a couple reps. Obviously, I prefer touchdowns over field goals, but hopefully Spencer Schrader sees a few go in that aren't just extra points, because he did kick a lot of extra points. So far, he hasn't missed one of those, knock on wood. Bryce McPherson made his Notre Dame debut, or a punting debut, I guess I should say. He launched the one kick that could have been pinned inside the 20. That's nitpicky. Overall, I thought he was fine, but he has a lot to live up to from John Stott from last year. So they did almost block a punt. That was pretty exciting. They did not convert on that, though. So it's kind of been a slow start for special teams. And the last thing, this isn't a huge issue. The offensive line did struggle a little bit early, slow start. The guards had some loud misses that you could see, and it wasn't Blake Fisher's best game either. He had the lowest PFF grade of any of the offensive linemen in this one, which was a little bit surprising. And look, let's get all the caveats about PFF grades out of the way. I know that they're subjective. I know that they're not perfect. But when it comes to offensive line play, I do sort of lean on that because I'll just be honest, I'm not an offensive or defensive line expert. That was not my position because I was 5'9" and like 150 pounds soaking wet. So that's sort of where I go to learn a little bit more about the position. And I was not surprised when I saw that Blake Fisher's grade was what it was because he didn't look that great on Saturday. But again, no game is perfect. This game certainly included in that as well. And these aren't like big concerns that I have, but it's something to monitor, something that I'm going to be watching, especially the special teams, the missed tackles, because I don't know what it is, but like there's nothing that infuriates me more as a fan than missed tackles. I understand that it's hard to tackle these guys, but when you have a guy in your arms, you just got to bring him down. And it was like the most annoying part of the Charlie Weiss era. Notre Dame was allergic to tackling back then, and they've obviously gotten a lot better, but hopefully that was just a weird first half against Tennessee State coming back from Ireland. But again, I feel great about this team, where they're headed. I do not want to end on a sour note. It's just something that I'm going to be watching because they got a big one this weekend against NC State, and obviously I'm going to be covering that all week long. I'm back here. I'm back in the States, and we'll have a new episode out for you every single day of this week, every morning, so be sure to tune in on your feed for that. But that is going to do it for me today, and that is a wrap on my 100th episode as the host of Locked On Irish. I almost cannot believe it's been that many since I started, at the very beginning of March, but I really can't tell you how much I appreciate everyone that's joined along for the ride, and I hope you continue to tune in for many more, hundreds more, hopefully. But like I said, stay up to date on everything in the pod. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast, and follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Irish, on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod, and my personal Twitter account is at Tyler, WOJCIAK. I'll see you tomorrow.